here we are. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the All Portable Discussion Zone, a bi-weekly live stream all about portable radio ops. My name is Charlie. Call sign is November Juliet 7 Victor, and with me this evening is one of the show's co-hosts, Dan KC7MSU. We're going to excuse Brian. Thank you for being here, Dan. And then also, I am pleased to announce to you tonight's guest, James KE8PZN. Glad to have you on board, James. Appreciate you being here. Also, a warm welcome to those of you who are watching live in the chat room. If you have a comment or a question, please go ahead and leave that in the chat feed, and we'll be sure to answer your question or respond. Don't forget also that this show is converted to a podcast and is available in most podcast players about 24 hours or less after the show. So let's get caught up on how things have been going, what's been going on amongst ourselves. And since I introed, I'm going to let Dan start us out and see what he's been up to. Go ahead and take it away, Dan.
Ooh, well, let's see here. Kind of getting ready for a couple things. I went and I bought a new tent for field day, so I just took delivery of that. So I'm very happy, and hopefully I'll be able to put that up as a test just to make sure I've got everything in the box and stuff. So that's pretty cool. And also I'm getting ready to do Activate Lone Mountain next Saturday.
Oh,
I've got a friend who's primarily worked a couple repeaters here and there in amateur radio, and he is wanting to learn about SOTA. So I'll be taking him up on the traditional Arizona starter peak, Lone Mountain.
Exactly.
And I'm in the process of putting together a new linked dipole to do 10, 20, and 40. That way I can get him on 10 meters and let him go wild.
Yeah, that's good. Cool. So that tent, I'm actually in the market for one too. I think I want to buy the same one you bought. It wasn't that expensive, right? I mean, relatively speaking, when you compare it to the Spring Bar, right?
Yeah, it was a really good buy. I'm happy with it. I kind of unwrapped it and stuff, and I'm very happy with it. It looks like it's great quality. I haven't gotten an opportunity to actually put it up yet.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping next weekend I get that chance.
Yeah, that'll come for sure. All right. Well, so let's see. I have been up to no good. No, I'm just kidding. I've been out on a SOTA activation recently. It was a really fun one. The video is going to come out actually probably tomorrow or the next day. I have it already rendered, and it's just needs to be uploaded into YouTube, and I need to get the artwork up. In fact, I could probably share with you. Let me see if I can bring my screen up here, and I'll show you what I've been working on Canva, and we'll show you here. Let's see, share screen and entire screen. There we are. And if I go over here, yeah, this is it right here. I've been kind of working on this. We took the TR35 out. Somebody lent that to me, and then also this antenna here. It's a B-Tana, and the two of those, I operated Apache Peak with those, and it was a great activation, a lot of fun. It's a first-time activation for me. It's only been activated maybe 3 or 4 times that peak. It was pretty challenging, actually. So I take you through the hike, and then we get on top. I do some 2-meter contacts, and then we do some CW, and go over how I feel about all that stuff. So that's coming up probably a couple days. And it was really a lot of fun. So I did that. And then now coming up here this Friday, I'll be out in the field again too, doing something. It's my flex day. So I don't know whether or not I'll be heading up north to Flagstaff to the cold and snow, or whether I'll just do something here in the desert, but we'll figure that out here soon, probably after I get that video posted. And of course, you know where to find me on Discord, or just look for the alerts. So, and the spots. So that's it for me. Also, I will be going out of town soon to go to Florida, probably within a week or two. I'm not going to say the exact date because just for safety reasons, don't want to have my wife home alone and me gone and stuff like that. But in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, I'll be going to Florida. So while I'm there, I'd like to do a POTA activation. It's going to be difficult, but I'd like to squeeze one in. I'm going to be staying at the Dolphin right on Disney World campus. There's a conference there for work, and I think that will have time in the afternoon one afternoon. So if anybody's listening who from Florida and is willing to maybe give me a chance to go with them out and do something really close to the Disney World campus, that would be really fun. I'd appreciate that. Reach out to me and let me know. So anyway, all right, James, let's turn it over to you. See what you've been up to.
Hey, Charlie. First off, I want to say thank you very much for having me. I always find it a pleasure to be on anybody's stream that has great intro music like that. But
yeah, thank you.
For myself, I'm actually still down here in Florida from Hamcation. I've been down here for the month. I normally snowbird the month of February, and I'm actually heading back next Thursday, so I'll be heading back home. But I've been down here shooting a lot of videos and doing a lot of activating, and that's about it. Just staying busy as always.
Yeah, cool. You know what, James? I have a little jealousy right here. I'm feeling some jealousy coming on here. I just noticed your hat. Did you get that at the Hamcation?
I did.
You did. Cool.
Yeah, I actually got the hat, and I got another Magali key. I got an adventurer for my KX3. So.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. That sounds great. You know, I need to get me a hat when I go to Hamvention this year. Hamvention. I mean, yeah, Hamvention. There's so many hams, this and that. So cool. All right. Well, thank you for being on the show. I had the pleasure of being on your show a while back, I think. And so we'll obviously get into your YouTube channel and talk a little bit about that at some point. Maybe a little bit later in the show, but really right now we wanted to kind of investigate you a little bit. Wanted to put you out there and see a little bit about who you are. A lot of people may not know you. Although if you're doing POTA, you must be living under a rock if you don't know who James is. But some of you may. But then there's also the soda guys and there's other portable guys that pay attention to this channel here and watch the show, so they may not know who you are. So give us a little background. Where are you from, and what do you do for a living? What's your family life like? That type of stuff.
All right. So my name is James Kilo Echo 8 Papa Zulu November. I'm from Chapmanville, West Virginia, a little small place that probably none of you know where is, and that's okay. I'm good with that because there's beautiful mountains there, and I love West Virginia, except for in the winter. That's why I'm in Florida right now. But I do POTA. I do POTA religiously. I'm on day number. Well, officially, I don't know the official number, but since they started the Bailey and Sprott Challenge, I've activated 797 days straight. So I'm very active in portable operations. I do soda. I started that last year, and I think I did like 12 of them last year. I'd love to do a lot more soda, but unfortunately in West Virginia, even though there's plenty of sodas, they're not really like the sodas that you guys do out west, where you guys got, areas that are maybe have trails or whatever. These are more on people's private lands, and you can get shot really easy in some of these places in West Virginia.
Oh yeah, I'm sure in the backwoods of West Virginia. Look out!
Absolutely.
So what do you do for a living, James?
Well, I was a bartender up until November, and in November I actually became a full-time YouTuber.
Wow, that's great. Good for you. I hope you have a lot of success in that. That's maybe sometime after I retire, I was thinking about maybe doing some of that myself, becoming full-time YouTuber. We'll see. But
I can shed some light on you for that. So a lot of people think, wow, there must be a lot of money in YouTube. There's not.
That's true.
There was a thing about 10 years ago. I had brain cancer. I used to work 80 plus hours a week, and I was a plant supervisor and had people underneath me and everything. But after that, I said I was going to live life, and that's when I went back to bartending and stuff. And the reason I can be a YouTuber is I don't need a lot of things in life. My children is grown. I don't have a family at home or nothing that I got to support. All I need is to feed myself and to go do what I want to do. So,
that makes perfect sense then. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So you're going to be at Hamvention there with me, and I'll see you there. What? Let me just reiterate there what you said earlier, because I just am so amazed by it. You said that you have been doing an activation, at least one activation every day, every single day for 700 and something days. How many? 700 and what?
797.
So almost 800 days in a row. That's like a couple of years, right?
Yeah,
it's 365, yeah, it's almost.
It's 2 years and 2 months and 3 days.
Nobody's counting, right?
Nobody's counting. I actually figured it up before I came on the stream, and because I figured you might question me on it.
Yeah, cool. That is, I just find that so amazing. I find it amazing that you've been able to do that. I remember, I think it was either last year or the year before, must have been last year at Hamvention, you were working on that, and I was shaking my head to go. Even then, it was like, wow, you're no, it was 2 years ago. You just started, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just started at Hamvention 2 years ago. Yeah, that's crazy, but very great. I just think it's a great goal that you have to do that, to keep yourself active. You obviously have gained a lot of experience in doing portable radio, then, haven't you?
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of stuff in portable radios. The do's and the don'ts. The always be prepared is what I like to call it, because you don't want to get out there, because sometimes I may be 4 hours from my house, and I don't want to go all the way out to do this unique park that I'm doing, or this soda, and get up there and then can't do it because I forgot something or something went wrong. So I'm always trying to be prepared.
Yeah.
To have extra stuff.
Cool. Hopefully we get into that here in just a minute. Dan, before we go over to the talk a little bit about his channel, do you have any other just like general questions about him as a person?
No, I mean, I'm in awe that that he's able to, be able to do this at this stage in life. So this is fantastic. I'm very curious about, since you get to activate like a park a day, the interesting things that you ran into over the last couple of years. So I'm sure you have plenty of people coming up and asking questions, and ran into park rangers and stuff like that, and things. So I'm very interested in some of those tales of activation.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll get those here in just a minute. We'll draw them out of James. We'll see if we can get a few stories from him. But James, just take a few minutes and talk to us about your YouTube channel, would you?
Okay. So, when I started doing POTA, and a lot of people, they noticed this guy who's came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's out there all the time, and he's always out there. If you want to hunt somebody in POTA, hey, put this guy on your ham alerts. It's this guy. And, I never expected anything, really from it. And that kind of gave it a kick. And I was doing that for a while, and watching a lot of YouTube videos all the time. And I happened to watch a video that Jason 2.0 put out about being a YouTuber. And, I had never thought about anything like that. But he said that, maybe your opinion, there's a lot of YouTubers out there, but maybe your opinion is an opinion that somebody else needs to hear. So why not try it? And I was like, I'll try it out. And I just started it out and never expected to do anything from it. And now it's overwhelming, actually, the support from people that I get. So, people are always willing to help me do anything in the world. Oh, you're coming through this state. Do you need a place to stay? You need to stop by my house for dinner. It's just overwhelming, that the support that people will give you, and that's the whole POTA community in general, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
As far as my channel, it was supposed to be anything adventurous in radio, because I've always been an outdoor person, and the whole reason I got my ham radio license was because my dad, he always wanted me to be a ham radio operator, and then he passed, and I got my license, to, actually give him the heads up. I did it, Dad. And then when I found POTA online or on the air one night, I was like, I got to do this. But when I started, doing radio outdoors, I was like, I'm an adventurous person, so anything adventure radio. And my first year, I was going around with 2 meters and taking my grandkids to amusement parks, and I was trying to make QSOs on roller coasters, and
Are you kidding me?
just
Really?
I actually somewhere I've got a really shaky video that never got out because it's just horrible. But I made a 2 meter repeater contact. It was a repeater contact on one of the roller coasters in Legoland here down in Florida one year.
I can't believe that's great.
But anything adventure. That's why I love soda. I like soda really just as much as I like POTA. It's just I don't like the situation of it in West Virginia. But I love to hike and stuff like that. I'm actually doing this summer. I'm doing a 6-park mountain bike rove. It's going to be a 3-day rove on a mountain bike, and I'm doing the whole Greenbrier River Trail, which it's only 78 miles, but along with activating and camping, I'm just going to take the time and take it in 3 days.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, that's not too bad. So in 1 day it might be a lot, but
yeah,
break that into 3 days is good. That sounds very doable. Cool. So your channel then obviously is primarily featuring Parks on the Air. You got into Parks on the Air. You started loving it. You're an outdoors person, and you thought. It sounds like you thought, I want to share this with other people. I want other people to enjoy what I enjoy. So let me start filming this stuff. So you started putting up those videos. Is that kind of how it went?
That's really where it all started.
Yeah,
I did a bunch of POTA stuff right off the beginning, and still do a bunch of POTA stuff. But now I've branched out, and I do some soda videos, and now I'm thankful to say I do CW videos now.
Yeah. You just started CW. So when did you start learning CW?
Well, I started playing around with it at the end of 2022. I started playing around hunting POTA parks with it, because hunting POTA parks, it's a very easy exchange. If you know your call sign when it comes back to you, and you can send your call sign and send 5 in your state, you're good. Because really, I mean, for the last 3 months of 2022, I would send my call sign. I'd listen. Oh, that's my call sign back. I'd send my signal report and state. I had no clue what they were sending back to me after that. I knew I was in the log, and that's all that mattered. And but I had put a goal out that year that I was going to do an activation by the end of that year. And Kyle, Alpha Zero Zulu.
Oh no! Don't name him. Don't mention him.
He stayed on me all year. He's like, dude, you got to do your CW activation. You got to do your CW activation.
That sounds like Kyle.
I'm like, I've got this. I've got this. I've got this. And actually, we weren't dating that year. And I can't remember who it was that he was. Oh, it was the Smoking Ape. He was telling Ape, he's like, tell him he needs to do his activation. He's running out of time. And he's like, do you know who this guy is and what he does? I trust him. He's got it. So finally, December 31st.
Are you kidding?
December 31st, I had maybe 10 or 15 people on my Discord that I put in a special room in Discord. And I said, this is where I'm going to spot. You people are the only people that's getting this spot. And I practiced those people over and over and over again. And I went out and I suffered through. It was miserable. I got 12 contacts out of those people. And I was like, oh my God, that's miserable, but I did it. The next day I go out and do it again, and I've done it almost every day since.
Perfect. That's awesome. That's seems like that's so many people's story. They're like, I don't want to get. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I just don't get over that hump. Finally, you do it, and then from then on out, it's just you keep going until you get really proficient at it, like you've become. Yeah, that's cool. So we have Dan in the chat here, and I hope he's throwing all kinds of aspersions at you. I haven't really looked lately, but I hope he is. But so this is another aspect of your channel, other than the adventure videos. You do the POTA, you do the soda, and a few other spatterings of different things. But also there's another aspect that you added on. Can you tell us about that with Dan?
Yeah, we do a thing on Sunday nights. It's called Ham Radio Shenanigan Hour, and really, it's myself and Dan. Sometimes Mike from the Azores will join us, and Hayden from Maryland. Sometimes he'll join us as well. But it's always me and Dan, and we really just kick back, and we'll talk a little bit of ham radio, but we joke around and just let people communicate with us and talk to us about what they want to talk about. And it's, sometimes it's serious as can be, and sometimes it's nothing but a bunch of clowning around on Sunday nights.
Yeah. And do you have guests on at all?
We do every now and then on Shenanigans. Mostly we stick to guests on my live stream on Wednesday night.
Okay, there we go. So Wednesday night, tell us about Wednesday night then.
Wednesday night is the Hump Day Happy Hour, and it's pretty much just all ham radio related. We'll stray a little bit, but it's pretty much all ham radio related. And I try to have guests on as much as I can on that show because I'm not an expert in ham radio, that's for sure. And if people want to know about something and I don't know, I'm not going to sit there and pretend to talk about it. I'm going to bring somebody that knows what they're doing. And matter of fact, I've had Charlie on before to talk about something that's on the air. I've had Bill Brown on to talk about CW, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really fun show you have, and it just kind of, to me, I feel like your YouTube channel is pretty well rounded, as you've got a good mix of things, and I think a lot of people who haven't found your channel yet ought to go take a look. It's the best way to look it up is just go Ham Radio Adventure Guy, right?
Absolutely. You could actually go to hamradioadventureguy.com and you could find my links to everything right there.
Cool. Okay, good. Well, we've let people know about you a little bit, your background. We've let people know about your YouTube channel, which now is your full-time job. I didn't know that, but I'm impressed, and I hope you have great success with it. Even though I agree. I mean, my channel makes about $75 a month, so if that. So it's not that much, really. I mean, you can't make a living on that. You got to do other things besides. But at any rate, Dan, go ahead and maybe if you want to ask some of your questions about to help massage out what James has been up to as far as some of his stories.
Yeah, I was very curious about some of the things that have happened during activations. I've heard some people every once in a while, people have issues with park staff or it's always fun when somebody comes up and asks what are you doing, and make the comment would they still do that kind of thing. So I was kind of curious about your take on a couple of those subjects.
Yeah, I've definitely had some interesting comments before. Matter of fact, I was at DeSoto National Monument down here in Florida, and I was doing a little QRPCW activation, and I'm sitting at a little picnic table right by the Gulf of Mexico coming in, or it might have been an inlet or whatever, but it was coming in there, and the ranger pulls around, and he's in his little golf cart, and he's like, "Are you using a metal detector?" And I'm like, no, I'm doing ham radio. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, is that like CB? So I ended up having a conversation with him that ended up being about 2 hours long, because he had he was one of those people that would talk to you like, oh, it's like a CB, right? Oh, do you do this? Do you squirrel? What? And it ended up being a long conversation, so it ended up being a long activation. But also in actually another place here in Florida, because it goes with that story in West Virginia, it was a little wildlife area way back in the middle of nowhere. And I pull in, and I'm trying to get a quick one in, and I throw up my Eagle One, which is a 31-foot vertical. And I'm just doing a quick activation. And the ranger pulls in. He comes up to my door, and I told everybody to hold on because I was just doing a quick one in the car. And he's like, are you tracking bear? I'm like, no, I'm doing ham radio. And again, it's like that like CB. I used to do CB.
A lot of CB guys out there.
Yeah. And the bear is funny because I had a guy in West Virginia asking me if I was tracking elk.
That's funny. Yeah.
Well, and I would, I don't really think about Florida with, gobs of POTA activities, but there are a lot of areas all around the Everglades where you can kind of just, kind of get lost and not really see a lot of people, I would imagine, in some of these areas.
Absolutely. There's some parks that I've been out in here that I'm like drawing this mental map in my head when I'm going in, because I'm like, I know I'm gonna get out of here and not have signal to get back. So you drive down this little sandy road, and then you cut this way, and then you cut this way, and cut this way, and I'm kind of grateful that I have a ham radio in case I get back there and do get lost and have to call somebody for help myself, because you definitely can get lost in the Everglades, and there are big cats in the Everglades, even though I've not been lucky enough to see one yet.
Yeah.
What do you think's your favorite park so far? I mean, you've activated a lot of parks over the last 2 years. So, which state and park do you think is, or what's your favorite state for parks, I guess, even?
Well, I mean, I've really only got most the East Coast. I've not got to go out west yet, so I can't really say that the East Coast is better than the West, because I've not been out there. But honestly, my home state of West Virginia has some absolutely beautiful parks. A lot of people think West Virginia, and they think this movie they see on the internet, on the TV. Oh, that's a wrong turn place. They're all inbreeding people, and there are some really, really beautiful places. There's a park, Lost River State Park. It's actually the last park that I did in West Virginia when I was doing work activated all West Virginia, and you get to hike up to the overlook, and you can actually see 2 states and 5 counties from up there, and it's just absolutely beautiful. But I like to go to parks that have really nice waterfalls, like Blackwater Falls in West Virginia. Cumberland Falls in Kentucky was really nice. Anything that's really scenic like that, it would be some of my favorites. I also like to take interesting travel, like if I have to take a ferry to it, or maybe kayak to it or something like that.
Yeah, kayaking is something that I'm very interested in lately. So that may be a new thing. But what's really nice about eastern part of the United States is there's a lot more state parks than, like, for example, in Arizona, I believe it's that we've only got like 33 or so regular
37.
state parks. Is that what it is? But I'm from Michigan originally, and you can throw a ball and hit a state park somewhere practically. So that's what's nice about Midwest to the East Coast, is there's a lot of opportunities for park activations that are just in when you think about state parks themselves.
Absolutely, and it's a shame too, because the states out west are a lot bigger than the states in the east. It's kind of like I always heard the joke that when people started drawing a map, they were drawing really intricate on the East Coast, and they started getting out west, and their hands was getting tired. They just started drawing big lines, But you would think with the states being bigger like that they would have a lot more parks and stuff, and it's a shame that they don't, because I've seen a lot of videos and stuff like that of Arizona, and Arizona's a beautiful place.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting places in Arizona and all the western states, but like you said, there's not as many parks that really advertise those unless you get to the big national parks.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so James, give me your. Do you have anything that just sticks out in your mind as one of those park activations that just didn't go well? That you're still looking back and thinking, I don't know what happened there.
When I very first started, I had a couple of that was just inexperienced, like not. People think you can just go out to a park without planning, and you can, but it's always better to plan. Like when I first started, I was new. Nobody knew my call sign. Nobody knew my voice. I'm not going to get picked up as easy on the radio, if I can't spot. And I went to a park before and, I couldn't spot. And I tried around forever. And, you get somebody and you ask them if they can spot you and they don't even know what you're talking about. And, you end up going and you hunt random QSOs where you can get your login. But, I've not had a whole lot of issues that things just went really bad. I have a funny story where I was activating a park and I'm sitting there going along really good. And out of the corner of my eye, I see something like moving quickly. And I'm like, what is this? And I look and there's a deer that's running. Something spooked it. And it was running fast as could be. And it runs right through and its hoof catches like a little piece of my coax that was just barely looped up. And I don't know if it stomped it or what, but all of a sudden I seen the radio moving and I just reached up and grabbed it. And luckily I was running one of those quick disconnects where you can pull your coax just on and off. Right. And it just pulled the coax out, but it totally shot the coax. And, if I wasn't near my car, that would have been the end of an activation.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, so obviously POTA is your jam. You do POTA every day and have for almost 800 activations, 800 days in a row. So you've probably got some good systems down as far as routines go. You may have got your car or your vehicle, I should say, to where you have the right equipment that you either leave in there or you have as a go bag of some sort and you just throw in there. I don't know, maybe not. What do you do for your equipment and your routine?
Well, when you do POTA every day like that, and you don't really do the same thing because you would get bored with it. A casual POTA activator who may activate once or twice a week. He may just go to his local park and, throw up, this big elaborate antenna and sit there for 5 or 6 hours and make as many contacts as he wants and then go home. And that's fine. I do that sometimes. I did that today because I had my stream and I had your stream. I said, I'm going to do one park and I'm going to bang out a bunch on different bands and I'm going to sit in the park and as long as I want. But I've got different setups for different things. For example, I actually hold the record for POTA for the most parks done in a 24-hour period, and that is 42 parks. And people's like, 42 parks? That's impossible. No, it's not. It's planning.
Yeah, exactly.
You map out your parks and you get everything set up. And myself, I had a support team is what I had. I had a driver. I had people in my Discord that was literally holding frequencies. They sit there and would talk on the frequency, and I would type in Discord. I'm like, I'm 5 minutes out. What frequency? And they'd tell me what frequency. I would pull into a park. I'd say QRZ, and I'd have 12 contacts, and then I'd be QRT. And out of those 42 parks, besides the last park, every activation was under a minute and 7 seconds.
Wow.
So,
that's interesting that you say that.
It depends on what you're doing. For general purposes, a normal activation for me, I do have my go-to, which is my big radio. I use my DX10 and I use my big battery and I go out and I sit on a picnic table and I'll bang out contacts. For my sprinting stuff, I'm not going to do that. If I'm hiking, I'm going to use, any number of my little radios, my KX3 or my QDMX or my Mountain Topper, something like that.
Yeah, there's such nuance, and I found this in SOTA too, in Summits on the Air. The kind of the same thing that there's a bunch of nuances and a bunch of different approaches that you can have. So I can totally understand and relate to what you're saying, because there are times where you want to just get up on top of a summit, hit it real quick, get your in the Summits on the Air case 4 contacts, so you get 5 just to be safe, and then down and you're done. I've done that before, and it's perfectly legit. Then there's other times where I've spent almost a full day on a summit and continue to work towards getting those chasers to have as many contacts as they can. It really depends on what your approach is, and then so your approach is going to determine what type of gear you use, and also what type of planning you have, and all that. So Dan, did you have another follow-up question? By the way, I keep muting you because I can hear you typing on your keyboard. I don't know what's up with your audio, but it's kind of strange.
Oh, okay. Well, I was kind of curious. Do you have like one or two different antennas types that you like on POTA, and do you use one, like for example on the 24-hour gig that you did? Was that a different antenna than what you would typically use? Because usually, like in SOTA, that's the long tent, pole in the tent is getting that up and getting it down and packed and stuff.
Absolutely, I've got several antennas that I like to use, and now honestly, I could do that rove back again and do it so much faster if I would use an ATOS, which was already, but for that particular rove, I used an Eagle 1.
So hold on just a minute, James. So just for our viewers, what's an ATOS, and then explain an Eagle 1 a little better too.
An ATOS is an antenna that you have already mounted on your vehicle. It's made by Yaesu. It's basically 4 Yaesu radios, which I mostly use, and it tunes straight off your radio. You put your Yaesu radio into the ATOS setting instead of a normal tuner setting, and it'll tune the antenna up and down for you with your microphone. So
nice.
Really, you could pull into a park. Honestly, if I was doing a rove that like a quick rove like that now with an ATOS, I could pull into the park past the gate and talk and get my 12 contacts, turn right back around, and never even stop the vehicle.
Wow.
Because again, I had a driver. But for that rove, I did use the Eagle 1, and I wasn't counting setup time in that minute and a half, of course, but I was calling activation from when I said QRZ to QRT. But I basically would throw up that Eagle 1, which would take me about 45 seconds. So,
what 12 contacts in 45 seconds, huh?
Now, the 12 contacts was in a minute and 7 seconds.
Oh, the 12 seconds was the
45 seconds was to throw up the antenna.
Right. Cool. Okay. Well, next question I have for you. So, since you're so experienced, and I have to say, my impression of you is you're quite a humble person, and you don't. I mean, you acknowledge your achievements and your accomplishments, but you don't flaunt it, and so that's good. I admire that about you, that you're experienced, but you don't you just offer help. You don't get out there and toot your horn. So, but 800 activations back to back is quite an accomplishment. So there are people that are joining Parks on the Air like crazy still, even today, and they're getting out there and they're starting new, and so they obviously, many of them, not all, but many of them don't know even what they want to do in POTA. They just want to do POTA because it appeals to them. So what advice would you give people who are just getting involved? Maybe some things that some pain points that you were able to work through, and now you can look back and say, okay, guys, you know what? These are the things that if I had to do all over again, starting from scratch, these are the things that I would do different.
Right. So the first thing is you don't want to be that person that's unprepared. You always want to have extra stuff, with you. Even when I go to a summit, typically when I go to a summit, I'll have an infed with me, and I'll also have at least a small vertical with me that I can throw up, and is like next to nothing footprint. You want to have extra coax. You want to have extra, stuff that you might break. For example, like I have a little tiny mic. I'm sure you've seen it. It's made by the design was by K6ARK, and he has it available for print. And that's the mic that I like to use, when I go out portable. But you can guarantee that my mic is actually in that bag somewhere, and I could grab that if it failed. So, because things will fail on you. You also want to make sure and prepare for stuff. Like if you're going into an area, make sure and do your research on the area. Okay, if I'm going into this park, uh, is this park closed at a certain time? Is this park, have multiple access points where some of them might be gated and some of them's not? It can save you a lot of times. Just like summits. Am I going to cross somebody's land that I might need to know about, or anything like that? So just be prepared in every way for stuff like that. Um, and really, as an activator, I hear people say they failed an activation, and I don't. It's beyond me how you failed an activation, and I'm not saying that in a conceited way, but there's so many ways to activate. You're just not. You're not thinking outside the box. Maybe you did go on the frequency and you called for 40 minutes and only made 4 contacts and you need 10. But did you consider maybe scrolling the band and hearing two guys talking and say, break in and do a radio check, get both their call signs, and guess what? That's a legitimate POTA QSO. So you can put them two guys in your logs now if you talk to both of them and got their call signs, and you can do a full. There's been contest weekends that the bands were so bad, and I pull into a park, and I'm trying to get multiple parks in. I will literally hunt 12 contact stations and put them all on my log. None of these people are POTA, but guess what? I don't need them to be POTA. I need them to be a contact. So, you just think outside the box. It's not hard to get activated.
Cool. All right. Let's see. So I'm going to ask another question, but before I ask that question and give you time to answer it, let me just mention to those of you in chat. By the way, everybody in chat, I've been watching and I really appreciate your comments. Some of them are pretty funny, so that's good. Thanks for joining us. So here's your opportunity to ask James a question. So all you shenanigans out there, make sure you keep it clean. But if you have a question for James, please throw it in the chat or even a comment, and we'll throw it up there. And we'll ask him one more question while you guys are throwing those in, and then we'll get to those questions and comments. So, James, the next question is: what about gear considerations for a new person? Do they what are some of the more important things that one should consider when looking at a radio and an antenna for new POTA guys?
Okay, so a radio and an antenna. You're going to hear a lot of different answers from a lot of different people, and I'm not going to pick just one. If you're activating and you get a good radio that works good, you're going to be fine with the radio. The antenna, if you're just going to have one antenna, I'm going to suggest you get an antenna that can do multiple bands. Everybody wants to say resonant antenna. If you're not doing if you're doing QRP, it's different. But if you're doing QRO, get you something that you can tune on, 7, 8, 9, 10 bands, and you're not going to fail an activation because you're capable of doing all these different bands. That's one of the reasons I do use the Eagle One a lot, because yes, I use a tuner with it. Yes, I'm compromised, but yes, I have over 200,000 contacts on it, so it's going to work. And I've got 10 through 80 is what it says on it, but I've actually made 6 through 160 on it. So, think about that. Now, if you're running QRP, get your resonant antenna.
There you go. Cool. Thanks for that answer. So back to your comment about failing an activation, we have Kevin here who says, I had 2 failed activations and still managed to 2 QSOs each, including Croatia and Germany. So that's good. That's cool. We have your good friend Dan. He says he'd never liked the term failed. It's a learning experience. Very good. Yeah, agreed with that. And then we have Jesse. I had a failed activation when I first started because I went to the false summit. Haha. Yeah, that's when you got to make sure you're in the boundaries, right? Or else it doesn't count. So what do you think about that, James, before we move on to these next? There's a couple more here. What do you think about that? What if somebody thought they were in the POTA activation area, made the activation, then later learned that they were actually outside the boundaries? What would you do in that situation?
I'd pull my log and I apologize to the hunters because I wasn't in the park. I'm not, I'm very big about making sure you're in the park boundaries at you and all your equipment because, first off, to say that we don't make money for POTA. We don't. It's not a contest where the whole world is watching you. POTA's for fun. So let's make sure and do it right. And just like I'm a pileup guy. I love pileups. And if you've ever heard any of my late evening pileups, actually I'll mention Kyle again because he actually came out from Missouri because he wanted to hear my pileup in person to see if it sounded what it sounds like on his radio. And he compares it to the expeditions. But I'm not going to tell you got to run a pileup fast like I do. If you sit there and have a QSO with each one and ask them how the weather is and what they're running, that's fine because POTA is about fun, and the way you activate that makes you have fun is the way to do it.
Yeah, cool. It doesn't look like there's any other comments or questions in the chat other than just some little banter back and forth. But Mr. Hamtastic says great information, so that's good. I'm glad he appreciates that. Okay, well, so if there aren't any other comments or questions, we can just move on to our own comments and questions. We got Vince says totally. As the activator, you are in charge of your experience, and I agree. For me, one of my most memorable POTA activations was when I decided to go QRO, and I went out to the middle of nowhere, out into this park, and 100 watts, 20 meter dipole, and I could not get the pileup to stop. And I know you've had more contacts in this, but I had 400 contacts in a matter of a couple hours, and it was just amazing. POTA can be so much fun with it. You can get so many contacts. You definitely, in my opinion, if you can do that, you don't need to do paper logs. You need to figure out what kind of electronic logging you're going to do if you're going to be doing 400 contacts, right?
That's definitely a good tip. My very first activation I ever did, I paper logged because I was scared that I wouldn't be able to type fast enough. And after that, I never did a paper log again. I was done.
Yeah,
that's always my biggest issue is trying to log electronically. Especially like Charlie's really good about logging on SOTA on his phone. I cannot get my fingers to move around enough to, activate and log on a phone on a SOTA summit. So I would imagine you use a regular computer, or do you use like a tablet, or what's your?
I do use a laptop even on summits. I use a smaller laptop on summits, of course, but I definitely use a laptop. And I'm not. People who listen to my pileups, and they think that I am a professional typer, that I am speed typing everything. And the fact of the matter is, I'm one finger in that thing and running the mic with my other hand. But I have this weird. Well, I told you I had brain cancer, and my short-term memory for normal things like dates and stuff like that is horrible. But call signs, I have a thing for, and I have a thing for voices and tones. And I can literally be 7 calls deep ahead of my log and still type it, and still I won't even slow down and keep going. And people watch me do that, and they're like, I don't know how you do that. And I'm like, I don't either, but it's just.
Well, it's funny too that you especially after you do it multiple times, you get used to, like, a lot of people that you routinely talk to, they can get like the first letter or two out, on the air, and you will recognize that just from their CW cadence, or just, their inflections in their voice. If you're doing single sideband, it's really amazing how, and that speed helps you speed up logging as well, because you are familiar with that person.
Absolutely, it does. And I mean, like I said, I'm great with tones. I've heard people down in my pileup, there's people with, running 1500 watts, and I'd hear a really weak voice down in there that was barely making it in. You couldn't even hardly hear them. I wouldn't hear a single letter or a number, but I would know the tone on the way they'd say a certain like Kilo Delta 9 Uniform Delta Victor. He like questions himself when he says Victor. That's how he says it, Kilo Delta 9 Uniform Delta Victor. And I could hear the tone of that question. And I called him out and gave him a 1-1 and kept going. And there's people that's running 1,500 watts and they're like, how did you hear that guy and not me first?
Well, speaking of, hearing one guy and not another, Douglas Davis asks, how do you handle the lids during your activation? I hear them just blasting their calls over QSOs.
It gets really annoying. I have a couple of different things. First off, I try to ignore them and push them back to not reward them. But if they're running like really big watts and they're totally destroying everybody else, I will just work them and get them out of the way to where they're not slowing me down with everybody else. But if I can still hear everybody else and you're still throwing your call sign, if I'm calling Whiskey Delta 4 Delta Alpha November and somebody's throwing their call sign over top of that, but I can still hear Dan, I'm going to work Dan, and I'm not going to call that guy next. I'm going to make him wait and maybe teach him some manners, but probably not. But now CW, it's the pileups on 20 meters. It sounds like FT8 to me most of the time.
Yeah.
It's just so intense, and I'll sit there and I'll listen, and sometimes I'll get some stuff out of it, but sometimes the pileup will get done, and if nobody throws in a straggling call at the end, I hit my automatic CQ and just go through it again.
Yeah, that was another question I was just going to ask you. So, how do you feel about answering trailing? So the concept of a pileup is there's people that start at the very beginning of a pileup, and then you've got a bunch of garble, and then near the end there's trailing, call signs. And so, some people say that if you pick up the trailing call sign, then you're rewarding them for waiting until everybody and so do you try to pick up the first call sign if you can, and then if you can't, then do the end, or how do you do it?
I agree. I don't like to reward them. Sometimes in CW I do, because it's the only thing I heard was them. But so if a pileup comes in, whether it's CW or sideband, and I type in November Juliet in my well, if it's sideband, I type in November Juliet, and I'll tell you why I don't know if it's CW in a second. But if I type in November Juliet and I hear 4 other contacts come in, I'm gonna go, even though I heard their full calls, I'm gonna say the November Juliet station, and then I'm gonna work you. But the thing is again, I have that call sign thing. I'll remember those 4 call signs and I'll run those straight through. In CW, I, however, will not type that first, because when I started my CW journey, I started with the Long Island CW Club. They're like, use a straight key to learn. And I'm like, I don't want to use a straight key to learn. I want to use a paddle to learn, because that's what I'm going to be sending with. So I used a paddle to learn.
Makes sense. They're
like, okay, write everything down. Write every call sign down as you're hearing it. I'm like, I thought the goal was the head copy. Well, that's for later. I just want a head copy now. So even though it took me longer to get it, now if you call me, you call me November Juliet 7 Victor, I'll send back November Juliet 7 Victor, and until you start sending back your signal report, I don't start typing you in. So I don't write it down. Now I am wanting to move to start rag chewing, because that and when I start rag chewing, I'm going to have to write it down. But the POTA and SOTA exchange in CW, it's just easier to head copy for me.
Yeah.
See, I'm exactly the opposite. If I don't put the call sign in right now, by the time they start their signal report, I will have forgotten the call sign.
That comes about down to my mental problem that I have. I think I'm crazy.
That's funny.
I will be driving down the road, and people laugh at me when I say this, but people's heard me do it. Going down the road with me, I'll just be driving down the road, and all of a sudden I will hear a call sign in my head. Not only will I hear it in their head, I'll hear it in the voice that says that call sign, and I'll be like, Whiskey Delta 4 Delta Alpha November, Dan, you're 5'9". Then I'll say Georgia, and then all of a sudden another call sign, and before I know it, I'm 20 minutes down the road and I've done rattled off, 100 call signs. It's,
Yeah. So I think Adam Adam K6ARK has a comment here, and it says, I don't mind trailing callers so much if they are QSK, and that means full break-in, and stop if you start calling back. And that's pretty much my philosophy too. I will, regardless of whether it's sideband or CW, I will try to pick up the first person who's calling if I can. If not, then I just pick up whatever I can, because you don't want to. And then if I can't pick up any, of course, then that's what I start. I actually just usually throw out like a 7 because it's closer to my area, or just something random just to see if most of the time if it's like a 7 or a 6, you're guaranteed that there's somebody's going to be there. Just to kind of filter it out a little bit. But yes, there's a lot of different strategies. But yeah, I don't mind the trailers so much as long as they stop when you start calling back. And but it is really annoying if they just keep calling and stuff like that. But again, I would say there's an exception to that even, and that is if it's a like say a station from South Korea. If it's a station from South Korea, I don't mind them calling over and over and over again over everybody, because I want that contact, and I appreciate that they're really trying hard, and so I will definitely answer to them as soon as I hear them. So yeah,
I had a guy today on 10 meters, and it ended up being a guy from England, and he was so light, and I wanted that call so bad, and I used every filter I possibly could have. And he went from nothing, me barely hearing him, till I got him up there, and I got that contact. And it's a great feeling when you pull out that weak signal.
Yeah, so. It sure is. It sure is. Your friend Dan says I made the mistake of not hearing anything and throwing out an N. I've done that too, and he says once. I've done it more than once.
Yeah,
that's funny.
And it never fails. You could put Whiskey Delta question mark, and you're going to get November 4, Kilo 8. They're all coming back. Once you said that question mark, that at least with my specific crew of people that hunt me anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing for people who are new to POTA. You're just it's fun to have a pileup, but you're gonna have to have some patience and kind of get your own style for how to pick out call signs. And the more you do it, the more experience you get. I think the more it'll become something that you can do. I remember my wife, she has hearing problems, and so she was really having a hard time, still does sometimes, hearing call signs. But you realize after it, just somehow there's something that clicks after a while where you kind of get it, and it just takes some practice. But yeah,
absolutely. And don't be scared of a pileup. If you need to slow it down, you're in control. You can slow it down. You can take your time with that. People sometimes will fuss because I'm a little fast, but I like to get them and go.
Pileups are a lot of fun. Very invigorating, though.
I have this thing where I like to go out and spot myself like 4 minutes before the new day starts, and see how many contacts I can make in the 4 minutes
before the new day. Yeah,
before the new day, and it's crazy because they know when I spot, they better come fast. They'll pile in there. It's great.
Fun. Okay, we're almost out of time. We've only actually got a minute left or less, but real quick question here from Douglas. He wants to know what your most memorable POTA contact, or one of you were most proud to get.
You know what? I can't narrow my most memorable one down to one, because there's so many of them, and it's the youths. I love to talk to the youths, and it's what I do mostly for is to inspire the youth to get back out there and do it. I will be literally running through a pileup and working 20, 30 calls every 2 minutes, and the second I hear a youth, I stop that pileup and I have a 2 or 3 minute conversation with them. Invest it's a youth that I've talked to repeatedly, of course. But when I get a new youth, that's what I do. And that's definitely talking to the youth and inspiring them is definitely my most memorable ones.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Well, you did it. You did it, James. We're all done here. Those of you who are watching, if you want to head on over and see Ham Reader 2.0 now, I think he's just getting ready to go live. I do have a giveaway for the channel, my channel members, and that will be in Discord, in my Discord channel here coming up in right after we end in this stream. So we'll see you guys over there in just a minute. But James, it was so good to see you here, and such a pleasure to have you. You offered some great information, and so I hope to see you out there and get you in the log at some point again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all you soda guys, come on over and hang out on the channel sometime and inspire me to do some more soda videos.
All right, will do. All right, Dan, any last words?
No, it was just great to have you on. I learned a lot today, and I need to definitely get out and enjoy some POTAs. So I need to get out and do that this year.
Cool. All right, we'll see you all next in 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure. I think in 2 weeks we're going to have Dan, myself, and I will do just kind of we'll each have a presentation on some topic. We won't have a guest, but we'll see you in a couple weeks. 73 to everybody, and look for that video coming out. We'll catch everybody next time. Thank you for supporting the channel, and we'll catch you again. Don't forget to go check out James's YouTube channel as well. 73, bye.
73.
73.